us again deliver on that ambitious outcome, helping us to reinforce and accelerate the achievement or the attainment of the 2020 agenda, the Paris Climate Agreement, and other global agendas as it were. So to kickstart the conversations, I have a very robust panel, eminent, but I would only be introducing them by their titles. And to give us the opening remarks would be Rosario Diaz Garavito, apologies if I've not pronounced that very well, who is the founder and executive director of Millennials Movement. You have our attention, please.
Thank you very much for the presentation. OGBC, and it's very nice to hear from you, and thank you everyone for being here. This is the second day of this forum, and it's very interesting and very exciting for me to share this panel with these excellent people that has been doing a lot of work at the regional level. As OGBC mentioned, the regional approach about all this process towards the Global Teacher Forum was something that was thought since the beginning. And actually, during the conversations yesterday, it was thought as a cross-cutting approach. That means that the different tracks we are working on, there is this view or this position for different people who's participating that the regional approaches should be included on the different tracks we are working on. But on this regards, it was not just a discussion from yesterday. As I mentioned, whenever the whole process was planned, there was a proposal to have these regional spaces, regional consultation that bring the context, the needs, but also the different characteristics of the context happening on at the regional level, and bring those conversations and those contexts here to the global level. So in order to have a momentum and an advocacy process that can address as well that different context. So I'm very glad to be sharing here with you today, and I encourage you to keep working on this process, but also to engage on the regional processes. I know, and I was telling the organizers yesterday, when I came yesterday, I was walking from 2nd Avenue to here. And then I saw a lady that was from Asia. And then I saw some other people from Africa. And I was thinking on my mind, is this people going to the same place I'm going? And actually, we jumped together on the elevator and we came here. So I think if that is happening since the beginning on this space, let's keep it. Really, and if you are from those regions, engage on those regional conversations as well. And let's make sure that all these contexts are coming together on our main recommendations on the different tracks, and we can have the voices from the territories also here on this process. So with that, I give the floor to OGBC. It was very nice to start and give him the opening remarks to this panel. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Rosario, for that charge. The need for us to, again, contextualize the issues, bring the needs from the regional perspective to the global level. Thanks for your charge for us, engage the regional processes. And it is in that regard that we'll now listen to presentations from different regions. Today, you will listen to the conversations that held in the Asia region, also the Pacific, the Latin American region, and also the Europe, and also Africa as it were. So we'll start with Asia, and is Anselmo Lee online? Can I check that it is available online too? Is not. Oh, okay. All right. So while we're trying to track him, we'll listen to the regional presentation from the Pacific region, and to represent that region will be Jackie Cabasso, Executive Director, Western States Legal Foundation.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Jackie is joining us virtually as well. Okay. Please go ahead, Jackie.
Okay. Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. Now you can see me. Okay, I'm going to report on the Pacific Islands and Pacific Consultation. It was organized by Aotearoa Lawyers for Peace, the World Future Council, and the Coalition for the United Nations We Need. It was co-sponsored. It was co-sponsored by the Asia Civil Society Partnership for Sustainable Development, the Hawaii Institute for Human Rights, the Hiroshima Organization for Global Peace, the Human Survival Project, the New Zealand Center of Global Studies, Parliamentarians for Nuclear Non-Proliferation and Disarmament, the Peace Foundation International Affairs and Disarmament Committee, People for Nuclear Disarmament, the Right Livelihood College in Bangkok, Unfold Zero, the United Nations Association of Australia Victoria Division, World Beyond War Aotearoa, and my organization, Western States Legal Foundation, based in Oakland, California. It was my honor to co-facilitate the session with Alan Ware. The consultation took place on March 1st, Nuclear Remembrance Day, the anniversary of the US Bravo Castle nuclear weapon test, the most destructive nuclear test explosion ever carried out in the Pacific. The nuclear explosion conducted at Bikini Atoll in the Marshall Islands on March 1st, 1954, continues to cause a high level of cancers, miscarriages, birth deformities, and other related illnesses throughout the surrounding islands. March 1st is also World Future Day. The consultation focused on issues relating to the UN Summit of the Future that are of particular interest and relevance for the Pacific region. These include the climate crisis, protecting the oceans, nuclear abolition, and advancing the principles of trusteeship to protect the global commons for future generations. Participations in the consultation included people and organizations from Pacific Islands and Pacific Rim countries, including Argentina, Australia, Bangladesh, Canada, Chile, Federated States of Micronesia, Guam, Hawaii, Indonesia, Japan, Malaysia, Philippines, South Korea, Thailand, and the Pacific coast of the United States, as well as a few participants from beyond the Pacific. After an introduction to the UN Summit for the Future and the Global Futures Forum, there was an open go-round for participants to briefly share their issues of importance to the Pacific region related to these forums. This was followed by an introduction to youth engagement in the Global Futures Forum and the UN Summit, and feedback from the participants. Each of the 7 thematic strands was then introduced with brief reports from each. This was followed by feedback on proposals already submitted and the introduction of new proposals, including a proposal for a Northeast Asia nuclear weapon free zone from a Japanese participant, proposal on ocean governments and deep seabed mining from a participant from the Federated States of Micronesia, support for mandatory peace settlement meetings at the United Nations in case of war. That was a proposal from the Peace and Security strand from an Australian participant, a call to halt the discharge of radioactive water from Fukushima from a Japanese participant, elevating the principles of Earth trusteeship in the UN Summit and repurposing the Trusteeship Council, jointly presented by participants from New Zealand, Thailand, and Australia, a proposal to amend the Rome Statute to add additional crimes on environment and other issues from an American participant, a proposal for an International Radiation Awareness Day from a South Korean participant, and a proposal to replace UN consensus decision-making with a qualified majority system from another USA participant. The session concluded with a brief update on the G7 and G20 processes and opportunities for civil society engagement. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Jackie, to you and your partners for organizing such a fantastic consultation and on an historic day as well. We thank you for that. We'll now go over to the LAC representative and Javier Suraski, Research Director, CIPE, will be doing this presentation for us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us here and the opportunity to share with you some of the results of Latin America and the Caribbean consultation. I only have 3 minutes, and you know that for someone coming from Latin America and the Caribbean, only 3 minutes means absolutely nothing. So thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be with you today. But in between the two, I will share with you some of the outputs coming from the consultation that took part very recently. It was open between the 1st of March and the end of the second week of March. And we worked through 2 different questions. The first one that we opened at the very beginning of the consultation was what should change in the UN, but also in Latin America and the Caribbean to build a strong and more effective multilateralism. So we received, as always happens in my region, we have a lot of ideas, tons of ideas. When they finished putting the ideas in the consultation, then we come back and we throw the question that the participants didn't want to hear. How can we do it happen? How can you transform your ideas into concrete actions? There were again many ideas and suggestions, but I want to highlight 2 priorities and some concrete actions that were proposed at the consultation. The first priority is very anchored to Latin America and the Caribbean reality. Participants asked governments and civil society and academy and even private sector to work together to finally make Latin America and the Caribbean lead the international claim to put equality at the center of the global efforts. Equality is a must-be issue. Promoting equality is a must-be issue in my region. The second priority was strengthening the debates and the creation of shared solutions clearly oriented toward action and data-based within regional and global institutions promoting dialogue. Dialogue was a word that came once and again during the consultation. Promote dialogue, create dialogue, strengthen the dialogue. And some concrete actions that were presented. First, they call to map the capacities of the regional actors, locally, nationally, and by sector to promote sustainable development. The issue was we still don't know what capacities do we have in our region to move towards the SDGs. The second action was proposed was clearly and permanently institutionalized mechanisms for civil society, meaningful engagement and participation in global and regional multilateral debates. The third one was working to reduce the overlapping of regional spaces that work on the same issues. You know that in Latin America we have many different regional institutions and organizations, and we have not a spaghetti bowl, but a tremendous problem because we don't know who is doing what. So we need to put that no system in order. That was that another action. And finally, and I'm sorry, but I would like to finish with a sad note. Finally, it is critical in Latin America and in the Caribbean to increase the security of the social leaders in the region. In the last 10 years, around 1,700 environmental leaders have been killed in the world. Almost 70% of them in Latin America and the Caribbean. And the number is growing and growing and growing. So it is impossible to have a strong civil society working together if social leaders are risking their life every time they go into the streets. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Javier. So, sad note that 70% of those debts are collected from your region. This is why we gathered also to ensure that we can voice our concerns as well and find ways of ensuring that we have solidarity. And thank you so much. We'll now go to Europe, where Giokos Kostakos, Executive Director, Foundation for Global Governance and Sustainability, will be telling us how the consultations in that region. Apologies if I'm not pronouncing it very well.
Thank you very much. It was very close to Greek, yes, the original. Thank you. So in Europe, yes, Europe, I don't know what you think of Europe. It's not only the European Union, it's more than 40 countries, right? The broader Europe from the Atlantic to the Urals and beyond, and Central Asia. So we have an interesting mix of countries and people. We wanted to include them all as much as possible. And we had, first of all, let's say, a general discussion about the situation in the world and the geopolitical context within which it's happening. So we had a one-day event, 2 hours, on the 13th of March, with Maria Fernanda Espinosa opening the event and giving us this broader context. And then our two co-facilitators, Manuela Tortora and Ivan Siloyanov, from Gray Cells, another organization of former UN staff, retired UN staff members, and Ivan from Youth Fusion and another organizations. He's an activist. So they led the discussion with 7 tracks represented by the European, let's say, co-leads of the consultation. So we tried to have a report into the region by all tracks and to see the response. It was more like an educational event and getting to know each other to get the discussion started rather than having new proposals put forward. But we saw, I think, 2 kinds of responses. One is what needs to be done in Europe itself, because the SDGs are for everybody and nobody can claim that he's achieved them, and certainly not forever, because we see in Europe also issues with youth participation and gender issues, as well as pollution, of course, and problems with climate of the opposite kind, perhaps how to allow others to develop and we have a more sustainable lifestyle. All these things come in. And at the same time, we have some good examples from Europe, from the European Union, on how to deal with some other things. For example, representation, democratic representation. We have the European Parliament, could be a model for the UN Parliamentary Assembly, for example. We have a way of issuing money from the Central Bank of the European Union for emergencies, etc., and have a redistribution of resources towards the poorer countries of the European Union, one of which is my country, Greece, right? So something that we—
Alan's alarm clock didn't come off.
With the IMF and the SDRs. So, I mean, there are lessons there in the past.
Now there's 67.
We're going to have now another event on the sidelines of the UN Europe. They have their Sustainable Development Forum towards the end of March, and on the 30th of March, we're going to have another event of our own online, and we'll send invitations to whoever is interested. If there is a minute and Ivan is online, I would also give him the floor, if you don't mind, to give this. Ivan Siloyanov. Am I saying it right, Vanda? Siloyanov. If he managed to be there, from Istanbul, where he works. So,
Okay, Ivan.
Manuela was not able to come because she has another engagement. Thank you.
Okay,
Just—
is Ivan online?
We could come back to Ivan.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for that. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, all right. Thanks so much, Georgios, for those lessons and good practices, especially those around the UN Parliamentary Assembly. That's very, very helpful. I think we have Anselmo now, Anselmo Lee, who is the Regional Coordinator, Asia Civil Society Partnership and Sustainable Development. He's joining us remotely, and Anselmo, you have the floor.
Anselmo, can you unmute yourself?
Someone, can you hear us? Please unmute. Hello, Anselmo. We can't hear you. Can you hear me? Unmute yourself.
Oh.
Hello, Anselmo.
Anselmo, can you hear me? Are you able to unmute yourself?
Hello, can you hear us, Anselmo? Technology, right?
Uh-oh.
That's why we need a global company.
Can you tap
I'm sorry,
the,
sorry. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Can you hear us, Anselmo? Hello?
Hello. Can you hear me now?
yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about the problem. Let me put up my PowerPoint. Oops, not this one. Sorry about the problem. Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm speaking from Bangkok. My name is Anselmo Lee from South Korea, but I'm attending meeting in Bangkok, UN Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development. As you know, we had Asia, the 3 sessions during the POP Global Forum. POP stands for Pyeongchang Odaesan Peace Forum, February this year. One was about youth session. The other one is intergenerational dialogue. And the third one was about the future summit together with the second SDG summit and also the UN climate summit, because we want to address the future summit together with the SDG summit and also climate, so that a more integral approach. There are about 100 participants online, and then in these 3 sessions, there are some major findings from this session. Number one was Asians in general, civil society, not really engaged in global agenda like a UN summit because lack of information and also language barrier and also a distance physically and also the time difference. Like today, you know, here is a midnight in Asia. Whenever we had a meeting in the morning, the many Asians, we have a lot of disadvantage in terms of timing and also capacity resources as well, you know. But nevertheless, I think Asia, we are part of global community, and also we feel responsible to be part of this global process to make a contribution to this global endeavor. So in this, our discussion, some of the major findings, number one is, I think we need to have youth-oriented and also youth-led initiative in this process. At the same time, intergenerational dialogue between youth and then the leaders. Sometimes we have also aging problem in Asia. The older leaders are about 60 and 70, but we don't see the many youth leaders in this civil society movement. I think this summit is a really great opportunity to build a collective youth leadership so that they can lead the civil society movement from next decade. And also, we also discussed a lot of challenges facing Asia. One of them was the silo, because there has been proliferation of civil society organizations, but they are very specialized, specific issues and specific groups. So there is a lack of interlinkage or synergy and then more silo and fragmentation. So the summit will give us really good opportunity to overcome this silo, the challenges. At the same time, we discussed top-down and bottom-up approach. This summit is typical top-down because this is a UN General Assembly decision is coming down. But I think we need to do more bottom-up process, which means we organize using this summit, organizing more local national consultation to mobilize the youth and civil society for public awareness building, and also put our government into more in this the process. So lastly, we discussed also this is a UN agenda, but also there are many important intergovernmental initiatives outside the UN, like a G20 summit. In fact, 2 days we had a C20, the inception meeting in India, and also People's 20, which is a new autonomous and voluntary civil society initiative. We are going to have a meeting tomorrow in New Delhi because we believe the G20, they are all members of UN, but they feel they should be more accountable. They should be able to contribute to UN agenda, but unfortunately, they are outside the UN. They have their own, and we need to bring them into the UN agenda and process so that they can contribute more effectively to global agenda like UN's future summit. So in that sense, we decide to work together with those existing platform like People's 20, C20, and all the meetings. So our forthcoming agenda, number one, in fact, the next week we are going to have this Asia consultation again in Bangkok, with the participants of UNESCAP Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development. And also 12 of April, there will be a C7 summit because G7 summit will be in Japan. So we are going to use again back-to-back the consultation about this future summit in Tokyo with the participants of C7 summit. And also one more meeting in Asia. So whenever there is an Asia Civil Society meeting, we ought to always have a back-to-back so that more people can participate. They are more informed so that we can mobilize more civil society into this process. So thank you for listening. Over to you. I will send a PowerPoint about what I said just now.
Okay, thank you so much, Anselmo, and thanks for reminding us of the need to also ensure that these processes are bottom-up and not top-down. We'll now go to Africa, where we'll be listening to William Keru, Head of Secretariat, African Union Economic, Social, and Cultural Council. He will be providing us thoughts on what happened within the African Regional Consultations.
Thank you very much, Babatunde. Let me start by indicating that this discussion is extremely important because we cannot talk about development issues without the people taking center stage of the discourse. And therefore, I think it's timely and it's very important for us to have this conversation. At the outset, allow me also to recognize Babatunde organization, the Nigerian Network of NGO, and then also the Global Partnership for Prevention of Armed Conflicts, who have actually led the C4UN regional consultation within the African context to discuss the priority issues on the role of civil society and the United Nations. It's very important. In the Africa context, it is important also to note that the African Union, which is a continental body, has established a civil society organ of the African Union, which is just not an ordinary organ, but an advisory organ that provides input into the policies and programs of the African Union, which simply means they have already taken off, they have already established mechanisms on how citizens can actually provide input in the implementations of continental blueprints or development frameworks, such as what we call the Agenda 2063, which is our development blueprint. Therefore, it is important that regardless of the challenges that we are talking about, in terms of establishing the right mechanism in place for us to be able to provide citizens' perspectives into the implementation and be able to identify challenges, Africa has actually established the right mechanism. Secondly, we are coming in as an institution to work with our brothers who have been leading the process in terms of the consultation at the continental level on how we can provide a supporting platform for the African civil society organization to have a consolidated African voice, one voice. We want to ensure that Africa speaks with one voice. We want to ensure that when the issues are identified and they are brought forward into the table of discourse, we are discussing as a continent and not in any other manner where we can be seen from a different point of view. At the African Union, we have also adopted the mantra of the Africa Common Position, as many emerging issues and the task ahead are very important for us to be able to speak with one voice. And therefore, African Union, through the African Union Economic, Social, and Cultural Council, which is a civil society body of the African Union, is able to provide that bridge between the civil society and government in engaging on critical development issues that actually affect the continent. Because of time, I don't want to go much into what the African Union ECOSOC is all about, but allow me to clearly indicate that because of the nature of the civil society body that we have established within the African context, which is an advisory organ to the African Union, it actually has provided us an opportunity for us to first and foremost identify gray areas and then provide a solution in addressing some of the socioeconomic challenges that the continent is confronted with. And it also provides an opportunity for civil society organizations and the African citizens to take center stage and take ownership and leadership in the development of their own processes. I will stop here and allow my colleague Babatunde to be extremely specific, because he is one of the, beyond the fact that he's the moderator, but he's one of the leading actors in the African consultation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, William. And I'm now going to talk that part of the moderator just to provide some very quick summary of conversations on that day. As you said, the consultations were organized in partnership with the African Union ECOSOC, the Nigerian Network of NGOs, GPAC, and also the SDGs Forum in Kenya. And a couple of highlights in terms of our discussions is on the need for African leaders to ensure that they work together in advocating for the needed UN reforms, but also more importantly, to ensure that the voices of Africans, their citizens, reflects in the Global Futures Forum and also other ongoing negotiations. Of course, African civil society organizations are also encouraged to find ways of ensuring that we can work with them and ensure that the interest of the continent is brought forward, again, when discussing the summit of the future. Of course, we had some conversations on what is also missing from the OC. This is to, let me also mention that this consultation we're reporting on is the first in a series. There's another one tomorrow, and there are others that we would also be, organizing with the African Union ECOSOC. In terms of next steps, modalities, participation modalities, and intergovernmental outcomes, we would be looking at that and see what recommendations we can make on those bits. So the conversations have started, and we do hope that we'll have about 2 or 3 more consultations to come up with concrete recommendations on what we want to see. But basically what we're saying is our government must all unite, ensure that there's one voice, and that the continent can have its voice in all of the engagements that will be happening now and also in the future. And now you've heard how the consultations went in Asia, in Pacific, in Latin America and Caribbean region, in Europe and also Africa. We will now open up the conversations just in case you have questions for any of the panelists, or there are some thoughts you think you would like us to consider in the second round of consultations. Their wisdom and insights that you think we also need to take on board. This is the time for that. And yes, okay. We check with temperature 2, 3, 4. Now this is getting interesting. So I've got 4 hands at the moment. Okay, okay, thanks for being so generous with that. So let me see the hands again so that I don't miss any. 1, 2, 3. Oh, okay, all right. Okay. So I'll start from the back, then come to the front, then I'll come to the gentleman.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kimberly Maloche. I'm from the Congregation of Our Lady of Charity of the Good Shepherd, and my question is for Javier. You said that there was a high number of social activists that were being executed in South America and the Caribbean. My question is, I understand that that was the result, but has there been any, I guess, ways of how to solve that that were discussed at the regional caucus, or was that not? Was it just acknowledged? That would be my question. Thank you.
Yes, noted that. And let me come to, let's come to the topic. Can you hold on for the mic so that our online participants can capture your thoughts?
Hi, I'm Frances Zainoden. I just wondered whether in the report of this meeting, there will be a list of NGOs involved in all the regional consultations, because I think it would be really great. I mean, I would like to be interested in which ones participated, so that we can, at the global level, can also reach out to the regional level. I think there has to be some cross-fertilization. Thank you.
I totally agree with them. Let's come to.
Thank you very much, moderator. Really, we are amazed about the level of the information we receive, particularly this regional reports. The rest of the world does know about it. It's not shared. It's not really well publicized, so we all could get the information from different regions. But it will be a good opportunity in this gathering if we can manage to see if we can have a global report that contains all different regions. It could be shared with the rest of the world, so we can hopefully, and then next time we can have that action plan, and to ensure that the recommendations are implemented or are recommended in world policy. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. So Javier, you seem to be the only one that has questions. The other two are recommendations. But let me check before you answer, Javier. Let me check whether there are colleagues online that might have questions or thoughts of wisdom as well. Do we have any? Okay, please up on mute in so that we can listen to them. It's very hard for me to see. So.
Right. Hello. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Right. Okay, I had a question really for our European representative, Georgios Kostakos. I was amazed, Georgios, I'm speaking from France as a European. You didn't mention the Ukraine war. We have 8 million refugees fleeing from Ukraine, a country which was attacked by another UN member state against all the UN Charter and everything we stand for. If we can't even discuss that or mention it in this forum, you know, I'm just very, very surprised and a bit shocked. Could you please say something about whether it came up in your discussions, and what do you feel the UN could be doing about this so that future type invasions like this never happen again? Surely the UN Summit for the Future has to somehow prevent these kind of attacks happening in future, and also solve the ongoing war, which is still not solved. Thank you.
Okay, Nada.
Just sort of quickly, almost in response to that, but I think, sorry, there's a pen in the pen. Just to emphasize, and I think this is the importance of the regional panel, right? I mean, the Ukraine war is devastating, it has several geopolitical implications, but can we just be aware of the fact that that's not the only ongoing war in the world? There are other regions in the world that have suffered several refugee crises.
we've almost been desensitized to the fact that they live in war-ridden countries. And I think this regional panel is an important place to emphasize those sort of regional realities. But also, you know, whilst I completely sympathize, empathize, and agree with a lot of what's said, I think in this room we just need to be aware that some regions are definitely emphasized more than others. And as civil society, we have an important role in having equitable consideration for the conflicts that happen in different regions.
Okay, thanks, Nadia, for that talk. Well, now it's Javier, then I'll come to George.
Okay, there are many data related to the killings of social leaders in Latin America and the Caribbean, but I don't want to depress all of you right now. We are in the middle of the day. What I can say is that the issue was and is raised by the civil society almost every time, at every meeting, but still we have no concrete answer for any state. There are 4 states in the region that are at the top of the killings: Colombia, Mexico, Guatemala, and I'm forgetting one more. No, it's not El Salvador. I would remember, in Brazil, there is the top 4 of killings. What is clear when you see the complete panorama in the region is that the social leaders that are being killed are those that leads fights for land. And it means a lot. The second group of leaders that have been killed in the last years are peace defenders. So land rights defenders and peace defenders are the 2 more attacked group in the civil society. Why I'm highlighting this? Because of the last comment. When people refer to Latin America and the Caribbean, used to think that it's a zone of peace. And even our leaders always repeat Latin America and the Caribbean is a region of peace. We don't have wars among us. We don't participate in different work. But I can ask, what kind of peace is being killed for fighting for social causes, for fighting for defending the forest, for fighting for promoting human rights? Can we really say that Latin America and the Caribbean is a region of peace? I don't think so. Maybe we are not a region in which war is present, but we are in a region in which peace is not present. Thank you.
Okay, judges.
Yes, thank you. Thanks. Well, the truth is that we didn't spend too much time on the war in Ukraine. It was, of course, as part of the UN reform proposals. The veto has once again proven to be negative and to avoid, let's say, yes, the P5 is an aberration. Maybe it was something that the Second World War needed from the new organization to be able to survive and thrive for the first decades. But now we have to rethink the model of the P5 and the Security Council in general. And that discussion we made, but about the war itself, we didn't discuss. That's to my recollection. And I think it should not be all-consuming. As Mudara said, there are so many problems in other regions and other precedents and things like that. So, yeah, that's my answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Rosario, you have some thoughts to share with us as we close. We are 4 minutes to the end of this.
Wow. Well, I really appreciate the questions and all the contributions, but also I think it's very important to recognize the work that is being done by the different networks at the regional level, because it's an extra process, an extra layer that we are adding on it. And from my experience in the Latin American and Caribbean team, you know, the effort was try to be intergenerational. And it's not that now the consultations are over. We saw also in the case of Africa, but also in Latin America, the process is continuing. So it's not going to stop here. There is a still process, still feedback, and also there are still regional spaces that need to be identified For instance, in the Latin American and Caribbean region, we have the regional forum for the preparation for the high-level political forum, a key space that built up the regional voices for a high-level political forum that goes to the SDG summit that can be connected with the summit of the future. So all these regional spaces and regional networks need to be also considered on this conversation. I just also wanted to mention something about it, the question. And the thing about, and I think it's important to think about the difference in the regions because each region has different characteristics. And for instance, and I think this conversation about the regional approach is important because, for instance, in Latin America was most, or I think is still the most violent region in the world. So this is not, we don't have a nuclear war, but the numbers of homicides in the region are higher than another one. So we are not in a war right now. We don't have declared conflicts, but we have narco traffic. You know, we have all these organized crime and so on. So definitely this is something that needs to be put on the loop. And it's important as well because we need regional responses. Not everything can be fixed at the global level and just try to put like a huge framework. We need regional cooperation. And for instance, to respond to this crisis about environmental defenders, but also human rights defenders, since 10 years or perhaps even more, on the region, we have been working on the Escazú Agreement. That is the first regional agreement in the world that talks about the defense of the human rights of environmental defenders. It is the first one. And this is actually the brother of the Aarhus Agreement that talks about access to participation, but also access of information regarding environmental decision making. So we need to start looking at these regional efforts as something that can complement the discussions and the negotiations at the global level. The Paris Agreement didn't include human rights, but the Escazú Agreement does. Is that a lesson that perhaps within the other regions from Europe, from Africa, from the Asia Pacific need to take in order to mobilize and build the momentum for these conversations based on humanity on the global agenda? I think it is. So I just wanted to share those thoughts and thank you for this.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rosario, for that emphasizing the need for the regional conversations and is to encourage you all to please engage. A round of applause for all my panelists and a round of applause to yourself.
Thank you, That was a fantastically moderated